All right. So Leica, Witness to a Century, Alejandro Pasi. It's a nice little bit of information right here on the corner. Since the first Leica was created in 1913 by Oscar Barnack, its small size, mechanical precision, and marvelous optics immediately made it a preferred camera of choice for professional photographers as well as demanding amateurs. Now, I won't read through this entire thing. You can pause it and read it if you'd like, but I did want to give you a honest look at what this book is. And see, obviously these could have been taken by any camera. These aren't Leica specific. I mean, these are Leica photos, but I mean, it's not as if you can't take photos like these with something else. What I think is, what lures me in is that I love photos anyway. Photos freeze time, and when you see photos from any time, even when I look at photos of my children from just a few years ago, it's a very, very strong sense of it being like a time capsule. And when you see photos like this, ones that are from way before your time, it's an entire world that you've never really seen. I don't know, you can just stare and think and contemplate endlessly. And when I know, for example, that all of these photos were taken by a Leica, just like if it was a photo collection of Nikons or anything else, it plants a seed in my mind that on this particular day, in this specific place, when all this was happening, these were real people. They had real lives, real problems and hopes and ambitions. They had a list of things they had to do that day. They had, even right now, this woman here appears to be looking at the camera. They're all having their own thoughts, their own processes. They're experiencing life in this moment. And what was happening in this place on this day, one of the people that was there that we can't see them was the photographer. And one of the things that was there, along with these horses, along with this wagon or this boat, these age-appropriate clothing, is a Leica camera, which is, again, important to the history of the camera and when it came out and what it allowed people to do. It is argued that though these types of pictures can be taken by any camera, that because of where this was and when it was, these photos were only captured because of Leica, because of the opportunity afforded that photographer. This is worth reading here. I like this part specifically. This book springs from a conviction that I myself share, although like many such notions it involves a measure of oversimplification, that the history of photography has two beginnings. The first dates to 1826, when a French chemist named first succeeded in writing on a surface with light, an accomplishment that was heralded as the birth of a new artistic activity. The second dates to 1913, when a German engineer named Oscar Barnack designed and built the first truly portable camera, a camera capable of taking pictures of the world at the same speed at which the world moves, without it having to hold a pose. And the rest of this is very good. Sorry for my poor reading. Between the small print and the fact that I'm actually standing up behind the table, so this is about 3 feet away from my face. I keep maybe it's the strange font as well, but I first read this as nations and not notions, so excuse my clumsiness. This, the timeline, the birth of a star, the society debut, the Leica goes to war, the difficult rebirth, apotheosis and pride, from here to eternity. And again, like a literal timeline, this is just amazing. I love the separate timeline of the Leica cameras themselves. Prehistory, the world in poses. Wetzlar, birthplace of Leica. Oscar Barnack, the inventor. World War delays, the Leica. Like I said, I've read this book multiple times, and reading because I love good stories. I replied to a comment recently where I said a lot of the time a camera that I choose, maybe 9 out of 10 times, is just based on the story attached to it. Either I've got a soft spot for a very specific camera, not a model, but an actual camera, because of a special way in which I acquired it, or there might be a different camera that, whether it's popular or not, to me, I know enough about its history or where it's been, or a special collection of photos that it was used to take, that camera to me has its own little story, and I want to own it for that reason. Similar to the Nikkor 105 f2.5. I believe it was an AIS lens that Steve McCurry used to photograph the Afghan girl. That lens, just because it was used for that iconic photo, to me is a lens that I want to own. It's the same with cameras. When I look through this, the photos themselves are photos I've never seen before. Many of these are amazing. Again, like a little time machine, getting an inside peek at what was really happening, and it's fascinating. But what I really like is the fact that it has so much legitimate, good information. This is not a sales brochure. This isn't telling you all the reasons why you should buy a Leica. It's not telling you about Leica versus Sony or Nikon or Panasonic or Canon. This is, I mean, if you watch my videos, you know I love history. And I've read so much about history, and I read so many stories and things based on evidence, and also just anecdotal evidence, that I have this summarized timeline of a lot of things that I will often talk about in my videos, like when I talk about a brief history of Canon, for example. But so much of that history that I know about so many things is, unfortunately, many times it has to be very slowly gained from multiple sources, painstakingly, over many, many years. And sometimes you really have to question the legitimacy of some things because the source is potentially unreliable. But with stuff like this is all legitimate. This is telling you the real, actual story. It's the complete history in one place. Again, they went through great lengths to collect the information, to catalog it, to lay it out here in this fashion. Obviously, I love the photos, but and also because of the mix of photos. It's because that you see, of course, photos taken with Leicas and whatnot, but you also just see photos in general of certain influential people, and then some of these people are total strangers that we don't know, a random factory worker. The cars of the era. This, at the time, today, if somebody took a photo of a shadow below them, it would be passed over. It would just be a snapshot. But again, given in the scope of time itself, this is viewed as something a little bit more special. I mean, Zeppelins don't exist anymore. This was taken by a special camera, by a very specific, special person. And it was capturing something that we will just never see again, very likely. It really, really captures that era and that time amazingly. And of course, I love that we also see just photos of the cameras themselves, not just the timelines, but they start to really get into the nuts and bolts and break them down, which I love. We've gotten this next point, the Society debut, the Forgotten Pioneer, Paul Wolfe, Henri Cartier-Bresson, Reality Taken by Surprise, Leica begins to publicize itself, Leni, was this Riefenstahl, When Art Does Not See Politics, and seeing these accessories. Again, this isn't somebody collecting it after the fact. This was an actual photo from that time of showing this new package of what could be done, the things available for this amazing feat of engineering. And these advertisements here. Yeah, I've talked in so many of my videos about how these old cameras, how not just old digital cameras, but old cameras like turn of the century, you know, very, very old cameras that everything was manual exposure, manual focus. You know, with these, in this case, we talk about very small rangefinder windows, so many obstacles, yet they were capturing not just the history and the time, but you see they're capturing actual decisive moments in many cases. God, these are beautiful. These are hauntingly beautiful. And aside from the time machine aspect of a photo, this is how you know photos are really, really good. All of these photos, for different reasons, very much appeal to me. These silhouetted people, these blown out highlights, these light rays. I love that stuff. I love blowing out highlights, actually. Whether they're technically blown out or not, I like to overexpose specific highlight points. I think many times it offers a beauty to a photo in the right mood, in the right setting. And even photos like this, the people, this is a candid shot. They don't know they're having their photo taken. Just capturing these girls in their life, which I love. Stuff like that. I love candid photography, but even this guy knows he's having his photo taken. He's posing. He's the leading man type, and he, to this day, he looks handsome. He looks like a leading man. I can't see a photo of a baby or a child without wondering who they grew up to be. And I start to think about very small, random, unimportant details about their life, specific experiences they might have had, who they knew, whether they were happy or not. I mean, I guess I just overthink all these things, but I can't help it. I kind of just overthink everything. I can never turn it off. I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it sometimes actually keeps me up at night. Zeppelin again. I mean, look at this. These people and that era, that clothing, the landscape, the way it was, in a freaking Zeppelin and this enormous airship just hanging out in the background. And the shadow of it next to the pyramids. These are just great photos. I love this. This brass case. That stuff is, again, from a just a tangible physical standpoint, like, I love the look of the brass. I like the material and the way it works. I like the concept of this case, and I wish you could still buy stuff like this. This is awesome. And for people who aren't familiar with Leica, people like me who have never owned one or never had the opportunity to build it into your muscle memory, it just tells you very simply every single little thing, what exactly it is. Stories about this specific camera. This story says, below, like the prehistoric Iceman found in the Alps, this Leica 2 was found in 1994 in the glacier of Villinga Geese in upper, what is this? Thuringia? I'm not sure if it's a TH, how you pronounce that, but at 2,200 meters of altitude. The camera body and lens survived the weather, and the pressure of the ice. Light's archives indicate that the camera was sold on April 11th, 1932 to Mr. Janssen. See, I love that. You wonder about that day, what happened, what was on that film, all these things. I just love this stuff. It's just awesome. The Leica 250 reporter, 1934. The Leica 3D from 1940. These compact lenses are just amazing. I wish we had more super compact lenses like this today. They might not be optically perfect, but they had a beautiful look. They absolutely had a character to them. And the size and the convenience factor is also amazing. It's one of the things I like about Micro Four Thirds so much was I could have my 12 millimeter prime, and I could have my 45 millimeter prime. Those tiny little lenses that fit in my pocket, along with a little camera. I could take some amazing photos of that stuff. And this is, I mean, think this is even more compact than a Micro Four Thirds setup. This is just amazing. And that convenience factor shows. Camera being so small and quite literally pocketable. The fact that it didn't even need a battery meant that you really could just take it anywhere and use it at any time in any circumstance. Oh, Cartier Bresson. I love old advertisements. I've printed out so many old advertisements for everything from typewriters to cameras to everything else. As much as I hate advertisements today, like you see a video pop up in a YouTube video, or an ad pop up during a YouTube video, or something flashing at you off the side of the road. Print media like this, when it's well done, is awesome. The Leica Goes to War. Ernst Leitz II, A Man Without Shadows. Robert Capa, Reality Recorded Live. Adolf Hitler, Photography in the Service of Propaganda. Peace and the Rediscovery of the Joy of Life and of Photography. It's amazing. It's amazing, again, it's not just, again, photos are like time machines, but it's one thing when you see a photo taken at a Nazi rally, because as crazy as that time was, it's more or less a safe place to be. But when you see photos like this of actual stuff in the front line, these people, these soldiers, these reporters that were in the midst of war around these enormous machines, anything could happen at any time. I mean, this was capturing a different kind of history. To this day, war photographers are amazing in their own right. And what's crazy is I actually didn't even notice the Nazi uniform at first. When I first saw this, the picture as a whole just captured me. And I see this handsome looking guy and this guy, they're dapper and they're looking heroic and stoic, and this guy hides in the back if you didn't notice him. It actually reminds me of like classic Americana and just their look and their vibe. And then almost immediately I I start to scan over the rest of the image, and I notice the eagle, and I notice the iron cross and the swastika, and it's like, oh, not classic Americana. Wow. It's amazing how much you can see in a photo, or how much you can take in and still not quite see. I mean, you really, to appreciate a photo, as simple as it might seem, you really have to look at it. Yeah, back to the war photographer thing. Pictures of real war. Wright, from Signal, 1944. A scene of combat on the Eastern Front. Hundreds of German reporters were killed in action. Oh, iconic photo. This guy. These are the Soviets when they took Berlin, and this photo here was legendary because this Soviet soldier, he was wearing 2 wristwatches, which was seen as a sign, as a bit of evidence that he and who knows who else had been looting in the city. And because of that, when the Soviets used this as an actual official photo, they actually airbrushed it. They retouched it to remove the watch. I believe he had one watch on this arm, and then this one that's still in the photo on this hand, and they airbrushed it out on this side so you wouldn't see he was wearing 2 of them. Again, just that's great history, things to know about. USSR, Stalin wants it too. The production of Leica copies begins. I actually like these old Leica copies. The Fed cameras and the... Got my bookmark still in there from last time I was reading it. "1945, the return to life and the rebirth of democracy." Again, I see this boy and I just immediately just feel so much about this photo, about this boy, about the expression on his face, what he's seen up until that point, his relationship with his mother, just everything. I really get pulled in by these types of photos. I guess that's why, without even thinking about it on a subconscious level, I've never personally been drawn in by the allure of fashion photography or studio photography or anything that requires a lot of prep and setup and posing. This is the stuff that's always appealed to me. Just real people, real moments. Yeah, I kind of don't want to turn the page. I just want to look at this for a while, but I have no idea how long this video is at this point. The difficult rebirth. The unstoppable power of the system. Elliot Erwitt, Joy Revealed. Mario Di Biasi, and The Tough Face of New York. God, everybody with these difficult names. Robert Doisnier, Parisians, I Love You. These cool advertisements. So simple to the point. I loved the way they laid these out, but also they would show you the lens itself. They would tell you about the lens, and they'd give you an idea of the framing. This is the kind of photo the lens would take. This is how you'd see it. And they go through the different lenses all the way to the telephoto, And that woman that's in the car back there is now right here. The background's compressed, and it's, I don't know, I love this stuff. If you ever watch old engineering videos that were made for teaching purposes, especially from the 40s and the 50s, they did before that too, but that mid-century time, those educational videos were amazingly well done. They were so clever in how they were able to take such complex concepts and break them down to be so simple and so easily understood. Rear view mirror, 1955. I wonder about that day. I wonder what was outside of the frame. I wonder if that was a young couple and first and last date, or if they grew old together. I mean, God, I love photos. I love photography. I've seen all these photos. I've been through this book so many times, and I never lose any appreciation for it. As a matter of fact, I think I probably appreciate it more every time I see it. This is so cool. I love these stories. The turning point, the Leica M3. Yeah, this is the Leica most people are more familiar with. This is where Leica really became Leica, which, as I say that immediately, I'm kicking myself, because obviously they were substantial. They were important, and they were really Leica before this, but I guess in our modern eye, what we think of as Leica, this is what we start to think of. It's Ireland, 1954. Milan, 1965. Apotheosis and Pride. The Special Series. The M3 Revolution. The Return to Journalism. The Figures. The Myth. Ladies and gentlemen, Her Majesty the Leica. Leica M4. Even this little film box is awesome. Again, the story, telling you about each part, advertisements, the box, tech specs. Just so cool. In the 60s. You know, somebody had to take that record player out there. That's what I think about is people didn't just happen to be together, and they didn't just happen to do these things. I mean, they made an effort. A lot of this stuff. It's how they spent their day. It's how they enjoyed themselves. zoom in right there. That cute little boy giving that girl a kiss. I think everyone knows this image is iconic. Uh-oh. Got a little tear on the page. Something must have dripped in there. That's not good, but now I've recorded the story of how that happened. The obligatory decision, Leica Flex, 1964 to 1976. The Leica M5, good ideas that ended badly. That opening line, the short history of the M5 took place over a 5-year period, from its release in 1971 to the suspension of its production in 1975. Its story is an example of how technical evolution alone cannot guarantee success. From here to eternity. The approach of the future is always a disquieting reality. For a good reason. Even the period we are living in demands to be judged and understood, is ready to make its way into history. The end of the USSR, the rich West, famine, war, 2000, Leica enters the new century. Return to the origins, the revenge of the mechanical. What a juxtaposition. Which I guess is the point. Leica M7, A Touch of the Automatic, 2001. The new millennium, the enduring fascination of the mechanical. I love this Leica family tree. Just branching. And that's it. Of course, they do the photo credits. I love the way they end this, just with all white. Just how it all started right here, before everything else. "200 photographs by 40 master photographers, all 15 models of Leica, complete with their technical sheets. The story of the first handheld camera in the world, and the photography it made possible in the 20th century." Now, aside from the history of Leica and both the story and the photos, what I love is that, again, so many of these photos you may have never seen before, and you might find a photo you really like, and by the very nature of having the book, it immediately means that you now have a copy of the photo. You can actually look at one of these photos and get lost in it and just be mesmerized, just like with a print of one of your own photos, or when you purchase a print from a professional. This is a real, tangible photo. Which is a little bonus. That's one of the reasons why I love these old photo books, is because this one, for example, is Life, the Classic Collection, and it came with 7 removable vintage prints ready to be framed, and they weren't lying. You can go through this whole book, and it's a great book. It has a lot of cool stuff in it, but if you go all the way here to the end and skip to the back of the book, look at that. This is an actual physical photo. You can pop out of these corners and you can frame it. And it tells you the story of the photo. All of these real, actual photos. What an amazing concept that when you buy one of these books, you not only have all the pride of ownership, all the joy of having these books and everything they offer, but in these cases you actually get prints that you could put on your wall. Amazing. Anyway.